If you were following along with me in the previous lesson, we explored Print Preview in pretty good detail. Now it's time to actually print our project. So in this lesson, we'll open up the Print dialog box to look at some additional options before we actually send our project to a selected printer. There's a few different ways to print, but first, of course, we need something to print. And you can see I've opened up the file called 2pagemenu.cdr, one we were working with in the previous lesson. So if you still have it open, switch over to it. If you close it up with me, you'll find this in the Lesson 15 folder of your exercise files if you've got them. It is a two-pager, which is kind of important. And as I flip over to page 2, this would likely be the back of my menu. So I might want to do double-sided printing or print them out individually and slip them into some kind of cover. So in either case, we'll need to explore those scenarios in our Print dialog box, which we can access a few different ways. One option is just to go up to your standard toolbar and click on the Print button. Now this could make you nervous if you're like me and you've used some of the Microsoft Office applications. Clicking this button on the toolbar in those applications just automatically sends your entire document off to the printer using all of the defaults, and you don't get to set any of the options. That's not the case here in CorelDRAW. Clicking this button, which is the equivalent to Control P on your keyboard, will actually launch the Print dialog box. This can also be done by going to the File menu and clicking Print from here. So I'm going to do that to launch my Print dialog box. And let's go through the tabs that we see across the top, starting with our General tab, which is currently selected. Here you're going to see some destination information. In other words, the printer you're about to send this off to. In my case, I'm using an HP DeskJet 3600 series printer, so that's what I see. If I had other printers attached or hooked up to my computer, whether it be through a network or locally, I could click this drop down and select from the list. Once selected, I'm going to see information about the selected printer down below. It's an HP DeskJet 3600 default printer. It's currently offline. No documents waiting. You can see it's hooked up through a USB port as well. Information about the printer in general. Down below, I see the print range, and here's that default, the current document. In other words, both pages of my menu would be sent off to the printer, and the copies on the right-hand side defaulted to one copy. But if I wanted to, I could just print the current page or select the pages that I wanted to print. I'm going to leave it at current document. And if I was going to print double-sided with my particular printer, which doesn't print double-sided, I'd probably have to print all the odd pages and then all the even pages, or vice versa, taking the stack of papers, flipping them upside down, and putting them back in the printer after I printed one set. But I'm going to leave it set at even and odd, and I'm going to go back to current document. Now over here on the right-hand side, with one copy selected, collating is not available. But with a two-page document, if I wanted 100 copies, I could type in 100 or use my arrows to increase or decrease the number. I'm going to go down to 95. Now collate is available, but it's not selected. And that means, according to these little icons, I'm about to print out 95 page 1s, then 95 page 2s. And I'd have to do the collating myself. Don't really have to. If I click the collate checkbox, you can see I'm going to get pages 1, 2, etc. Then 1, 2 again, 95 times. The collating will be done for me. Well, I'm going to deselect that, and I'm actually going to highlight 95 by clicking and dragging and type in a 1. I only want one copy. Now the neat thing about this Print dialog box is what appears down below. When we start making selections and changing our options, if it's something we're going to do on a regular basis, we're going to use the same set of print options a number of times, we might want to save that print style, give it a name, so we can actually go to the drop down here and choose our print style from a list without having to go through this routine every time. So when we're done selecting our options, perhaps we should save that as a print style that we can select in the future. We'll do that in a minute. Let's go over to the very last tab because it's kind of bugging me over here. Notice that it appears we have one issue. I see this little warning sign, and because it's standing out, I'm going to go there next. This is our pre-flight tab. It tells me that my output doesn't fit on the media. That's, well, something I saw in the previous lesson actually using Print Preview. It doesn't fit on the media. It looks like both pages here, 1 and 2, don't fit on the page because there's non-printing areas, as you may recall from that previous lesson. So I do have an option down below to go to Print Preview right from here. So I don't have to close this up and go to my File menu. I can access it right from here. Or I'm just going to move this dialog box over. I've also got a button for expanding or collapsing a mini print preview. When I click on this, you can see it expands it, and sure enough, areas are getting cut off down at the bottom, maybe even on the right. I can navigate through the pages, getting cut off down there as well. So I do have some fixing up to do. I can collapse this mini print preview by clicking the double arrows. And now I'm going to go over to my Layout tab because I think under the Layout tab I'll be able to fix this issue. Click on Layout. You can see As in Document is selected, one of the options we saw in the previous lesson under Print Preview. Another option, another preset was Fit to Page. If I click on this radio button, watch what happens. No issues up here on our Pre-Flight tab. Beautiful. There's those other options for repositioning, center of page, and all the options we saw in our Print Preview. And down below, if I wanted to manually adjust any of those settings like the position, the size, and scaling, it can be done. With Fit to Page selected, you can see what's happening. It's being scaled down to 90% for both the height and the width. I can also print tiled pages, which is kind of neat. Let's say I wanted a huge poster to put in the window and I wanted it to be 10 times bigger than it is. Well, I don't have any paper that big that will go through my printer, so I might want to print tiled pages. Clicking this allows me to choose how many pages I need to print out my entire document. In other words, if I blow it up 10 times, I might need 10 sheets of paper. A portion of my menu will print on each sheet, and then I put them together like a puzzle up in the window. So here's where I get to do that. You can see the percent of the page width that I'm going to use. I can bump that up, and you can see what's happening to the tile overlap here. So I can type in a value here as well if I wanted to. And that's going to change over here in the thumbnail the number of pages or sheets of paper necessary to print out my entire document. In this case right now with these settings, I'm looking at 2 tiles across and 2 tiles down. But I don't want to print tile pages. I actually want it to print just the way it shows up there, and I want it to fit to page. I don't want to see that issue up there at the top. Let's move on to separations. Separations in pre-press are really for commercial or professional printing. When you go to the separations tab, nothing's really selected here, but you can print the separations. In this case, we're using the color model CMYK. That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. They're all checked off, and they will all print on separate sheets of paper. When you start combining those colors together, you get the end result we see in our menu. So some print agencies and commercial print houses like to have those separations. You can see we can print them in color, hexachrome plates. Typically, if you're going to be sending something off to a commercial print house, they will tell you what they need, and you come in here and make the selections. I'm going to deselect my print separations. Same thing goes for the pre-press tab. They might tell you that you need to invert your paper film settings. You could come in here to do that. You can also print some of the file information like the name of the file and page numbers, crop and fold marks, all things that your print house will tell you they need or don't need. So you just come in here and make the appropriate selections. I'm going to go over to miscellaneous now. Here I've got some color options and proofing options. I especially like some of these proofing options in here. For example, if I want to print out just the text in this document, the images themselves and some of the objects that I've drawn, they don't matter. I just want to see the text. It'll save me some ink and some paper if I deselect my vectors and bitmaps and just print out the text. It could be in full color, colors as black, grayscale, or print all text in black if I wanted to. Then I could take a look at it, see how it really looks on paper, and then come back in here to print everything under the proofing options. All right, and of course the pre-flight tab says no issues. That means I'm ready to go back here to General, make sure all of my settings and copies are right, and click the Print button. Now when I click Apply, those settings are now applied, and if I wanted to save them, I come up to Save As. You can see it's going to be saved in a folder called Print Styles. Currently the file name, CorelDRAW Defaults. I could type in my own. I'm going to type in Menu Settings and click Save. Now anytime that I need to access these settings, this group of settings for printing out a menu, it'll show up on my list. I just select it and click my Print button, knowing that all the settings are just right for my project. All right, if you don't want to print, of course, you can click Cancel. Go ahead and print this out if you like, or click Cancel to return to your document. So the last lesson, Print Preview. This lesson, actually printing, should give you a good foundation, a good handle on some of the print options when it comes to putting your projects on paper.